Hey, everybody. I am just doing the whole tech thing of getting set up to talk to you about universe. I'm inviting my dear friend Verana Faye in to join us. So we'll give her a moment for that. Um, yeah, I am so ready. Instagram's giving me little messages. They're telling me that it's getting ready. Hopefully Verana's joining. Hopefully you're joining. Let's see. Hmm. The anticipation. This is actually the first time I've ever done a live with another person as my guest. And there she is.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, it worked. How exciting. We're here,
We're here.
which is a wonderful place to be.
It's a wonderful place to be. Good morning, good afternoon.
Yeah, good present moment. Hi, dear.
Hey.
Hmm. Seeing
Mm,
your face makes me happy.
yeah, really good.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to have a mutual love fest by nature of the fact of what we're here to talk about, certainly. But we have some other things we're here to talk about, namely the Yoniverse and the Universe, which is happening this Friday. I'm so excited for our first circle, although it's kind of not our first circle in a certain way.
That's true. Had our
Yeah.
circle as a coming into this year, which seems so fitting that it seems to be birthing so many important themes and ways that I've wanting to connect with my body this year. And from that was birthed this collaboration and this creation that we're so excited about.
Yes. Maybe we should say who we are in case there's anybody watching this that doesn't know one of us.
Okay.
Great. Would you care to introduce yourself?
My name is Verana. Um, here in what is called Marin County on coastal Miwok land. And I am a full spectrum doula. I do birth and postpartum and bereavement and loss doula services for clients all over the Bay Area. I am also an archetypal and counseling astrologer, and I give for individuals, for couples, for newborns, for families. And yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you.
You.
And my name is Darshana Avila, and I'm coming to you from Ohlone territory, unceded territory, in what many of us call Oakland, California. And my work is all about embodying eroticism and really breathing new dimensions of intimacy and aliveness into our lives and our relationships. And I primarily work with women and couples around that, and also lead group journeys and experiences. And that is kind of what we're here to do, right? It started out. Verana and I, along with two other dear friends, spontaneously, as a way of celebrating the crossing of the Gregorian calendar from 2020 to 2021, we found ourselves in this beautiful, spontaneous ritual of evoking Eros and really tapping into what many call sex magic. And I'll talk about that a little bit. And it was held in this bigger inquiry. I was like incredibly enthusiastic, like all this like puppy dog energy, like, oh my God, astrology. I know it's always been there, but all of a sudden I'm like very interested in it. And how convenient that I have a good friend who's an astrologer. And here we are.
And here we are.
Here
And
we
it
are.
seems that as we participated in this journey together, and then afterward we're so juiced and jazzed and talking about astrology, that the two seemed to merge and come together in a really exciting way that I feel like a lot of us
Yeah.
are wanting
Yeah.
and that are ready for.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, a big piece of what I focus on and the reason why I talk about erotic and eroticism,
Mm.
at least alongside of sexuality. Sometimes it encompasses it, sometimes it's one or the other that's the more appropriate word. But Eros is a bigger theme, and it's a bigger container, and is everything to do with our creativity, our participation in life, our sense of place and belonging. I feel like we get to embody that and experience that more fully when we're really tapped into our eroticism. And although I orient that down in relation to Earth a lot of the time, the part of what felt so synchronistic in creating an astrological framework for this is also orienting toward the cosmos, the stars, the planets, the movements, things that I'm only newly learning about, and Verana has such a deep and beautiful passion for. And so, a big part of what I'm really hoping we get to experience together when we come for these Universe and Universe, it kind of in my mouth. When we come together in these circles is an embodied experience of our place of belonging, like in the wide web of life, including the cosmos, including the earth we sit upon. And it's going to be a really fun journey to exploring that.
And I just as the universe and the planets are constantly moving and constantly changing the conversation that they are having with one another, and how that conversation plays with and influences and impacts us personally and collectively. Every time we come to ourselves, every time we come to our bodies, to our breath, to our yonis, to our touch, to our self-pleasure, it's a unique and different experience. And there is so much that can be explored and unveiled and discovered. And so this is a journey of self-discovery and also to be done in community. And I'm curious about the community piece, and if you want to a little bit to that.
Yeah, I do want to speak to that. There's also one thing I want to say before, which is I want to presence that we are using the word yoni, that is a Sanskrit word. And I lean into the use of yoni because I don't feel like we have an adequate equivalent in English to speak about the entirety of our anatomy when it comes to our not just reproductive but creative anatomy. I call that, it is encompassing of our wombs, our whether or not you have an intact uterus notwithstanding, but all of the internal structures as well as our vulvas. Yoni is a word that can encompass all of that, and we just don't have the equivalent in English. And so I want to acknowledge that the use of the word yoni, is borrowing from Sanskrit. It shows up a lot in neo-tantric circles, but it's rooted in a deeper and more ancient tantric wisdom. And so just to presence that in case anyone's wondering, like, what is that word about, or has questions about the use of the word in a context where two white women are talking about it. Yeah. So just to name that. But that invitation to speak about, like, why would we do this in community? And to me, it's like a really fabulously subversive act to bring our eroticism, to bring our sexuality into a communal space, rather than to keep it relegated to shadow, to secrecy, which is how, in terms of our dominant culture, most anything related to our sexuality is considered. And particularly when it comes to women's sexuality, there are very tightly conscripted ways in which it's okay to be sexual as a woman. Highly commodified, highly performative, very much organized from the standpoint of, let's do this for the male gaze, let's use this as a power play. And the invitation in the Yoniverse and the Universe gatherings is to actually create a new culture around women's sexuality, and to connect to the sacredness of it, to move beyond the shame and the stigma, and to orient toward our sexuality. And really, I would say here, this is where the word eroticism or eros is more apt, to relate to the erotic in ourselves, to our embodiment of that as not just our sexuality, but our sensuality and our creative connection. It's what bonds us. It's the medicine, the wisdom that moves through our feminine body, which, that is not necessarily a gendered thing. And yet this offering is specifically for cis women. And we're going to get to explore what it's like to meet up against our edges of how this might feel a little uncomfortable, this might feel strange, and hopefully find your right way forward. And I'm curious, because I'm the one who's coming in with the background in the field of sexuality, like this is a more familiar territory for me. Verana, I would love for you to to share, if you're willing, like how you feel about stepping into this space, some of the questions or the concerns that you might have about it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, um, I love what you said about it being, that we're coming up against our edges with this and creating a new culture. And as somebody that has danced in the realms of sexuality in ways that have felt both comfortable and uncomfortable, this is an edge for me. And I mean, part of why I'm so eager to step into this is because of the magic that I experienced with you, and also feeling like my own body is asking me to slow down a lot more these days,
Mm,
and to really listen and drop down and in. And
yeah.
so the edge of doing this in community, my initial questions were like, are our cameras going to be on? And are we going to be looking at each other? And are we going to be sharing things in ways that maybe we don't feel comfortable? Or are we going to be invited past that edge? And I think that that's, as we've been exploring this and talking about what this is, I can feel that things are softening in me, and that
Mm,
there's an opening to possibility that feels really integrative of something that's been lost in
mm,
lost
yeah.
in our collective of what it is to be women and vulva bearing folks that can come together and honor and be in sacred dance and ritual together.
Yeah. Mm, thank you. There are so many words that, as they came out of your mouth, like slow and dry, integrative, that I'm like, I felt that reverberate in my system of like, yes, that's exactly what we want. And so it's a good segue to talk a little bit about like what you might expect stepping into a circle like this, and on a very practical level, do you have to keep your camera on? It's a yes and kind of situation. So I'm very much I'm a big believer and cheerleader and enthusiast for sovereignty and agency in our bodies. And also, I have a responsibility to tend to the group field. So there is a container being held. And my invitation is to explore the possibility of having your camera on. And maybe that means angling your camera such that your body isn't visible, which is totally okay. If you really feel like you want your camera off, guess what? Turn your camera off. So we're holding a broad space of permission here. This is not a spectator sport. It's not meant to be voyeuristic. Were we in a physical room together, what I would be encouraging is the same thing that I'm going to encourage in a Zoom room, which is that really our focus is on ourselves, and we're using less of our visual sense and more of our felt sense to tune into what's happening in the group field. Because we're not in the same room, that might mean that you look at the screen on occasion and you have a soft gaze, a gaze that is bringing just like a little curiosity out there of like, oh, who are the others that I'm with? And then I come back to myself. So I hope that gives like a little taste, a little flavor of how we're holding an exploration of embodying eros in a group field. And I also want to speak specifically to like what are we going to do? Like what are we doing with our bodies? What are we doing with our hands? What's the expectation? Which I'm using that word on purpose because I want you to know that there actually isn't one. I'm going to offer some different options about ways that self-touch can be a pathway to exploring your eroticism. Some of this might be what you very readily associate with masturbation, and some of it might feel and look different to you. It's meant to be an experience that each individual can adapt and find their way into wherever they are, wherever you're coming in from. Like it's no secret, especially if you're on all over my Instagram, like I love to masturbate and I love for other people to masturbate. And that doesn't mean I want to masturbate all the time. And so it might look like me resting with my hands on my chest or over my vulva or sensuously caressing my body in a way that feels nurturing. Like there's no, are we still here? I got a low battery message, so got to make sure I'm not losing y'all here. Sorry about that. But there's no have to. there's no obligation. There is an invitation to show up and learn a little about what might happen if you lean gently into the fear, into the discomfort. What might happen if you at least give yourself the benefit of staying open and permeable to the possibility of something emerging that could be really supportive and enlivening and empowering for you. So that's a little bit about that piece. And you had posed a great question to talk to folks about that I think is really important. Like, what is sex magic? Like, why that terminology is being used? And very simply put, we're tapping into the power, the potency, the actual currency of our sexuality, of eros moving in our body, and we're using that to charge up an intention, a wish, a vision. So part of the ritual space that's going to be offered is dropping into said intention, vision, whatever it is that you're really wanting to amplify. And it might be something very personal. It might be something more collective. It could be a both and. And we're going to deliberately connect with and harness our erotic energy to, like, it's like a rocket booster to our intentions. And so that's, in a very simple explanation, what sex magic is all about. It's in my opinion, it's a very ordinary magic. It's something that we all have access to. Many of us are distanced from it. And so this is an opportunity to connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That as you were sharing, I was really feeling into the word universe, and as and seeing the image that you posted of the fingers going in of the vagina of the universe itself, and feeling into, when we create a container and when we set intention, and feeling into the power of the yoni, of the entire pelvis and vagina and vulva area, that this is the area of possibilities and wholeness. And I really feel I access when I engage with the planets as also a map for wholeness, and that the archetypes of the planets can, when we bring those into our bodies and into our lives, it invites more acceptance and possibility and wholeness for what's there. So in this journey, anger might come up, grief might come up, joy might erupt, numbness can certainly be there. There are so many possibilities, and so just wanting to really create a container that feels safe enough that you have permission for whatever arises, and that can be held both by the universe and by the container that we're creating.
Yes. Thank you for that. I will give one more echo to your full spectrum experience is welcome. Yes. This is not prescriptive. It does not have to look like screaming orgasmic ecstatic bliss. It can be very subtle. It can be on the other end of the spectrum, and Eros encompasses all of that. So when we speak of wholeness, which can be interpreted in so many different ways, what I'd love to emphasize, to re-emphasize, echoing what you just shared, Verana, is that the whole spectrum of our emotional experience is welcome. All the sensations in our body, that's really what we're going to be connecting to.
Yeah.
And I really hope you'll join us if you're intrigued by this. We gather this Friday, which is the 29th of January, and it's the day after the full moon. So we'll be meeting, on or close to the full moon every month. This month it is Friday at 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time. The link is in my bio, and we'll have plenty of ways to find the information if you're curious about that. And if you have questions, I'm sure I speak for both of us when I say reach out. We're happy to answer them, and we hope that this little conversation perhaps answered some of them for you. And very excited. We've already got a great group of people signed up. And yeah, if you're feeling like you might want to join us, then we'll welcome you as well.
Yes, please. Thank you. So good to be with you today.
Yes. Thank you, my dear. See y'all soon.
Bye.
Bye.